Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, NFL fans, just fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. And Clay, right off the top, right off the jump, before we get into like pre-draft banter, especially concerning the Ohio State Buckeyes, could be our banter could be the preface to a banner year for the Buckeyes in the National Football League draft. We'll get to that in a moment, but I don't know if apologize. Maybe I don't know what the word I would use would be. Maybe some people liked it, but the first and second parts of our podcast on Monday because of technical errors didn't make it, but we did get the extended interview with Matt Wilhelm. Mondays with Matt, which is a semi-regular thing until the football season comes, and then it's regular. It's either Mondays or Wednesdays, Mondays with Matt or Wednesdays with Wilhelm. So I hope people enjoyed that conversation. But a lot of your stellar points you made coming out of the spring game were lost. Well, we're lost to history.
Yeah, I want to tell the folks we made the effort. We taped about 35 minutes or whatever it was. But later we found out there were audio hiccups. We sounded robotic.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would ever say that about Tim May. So we had a little issue there, but let's move on.
What do you mean by that?
Because I want to talk about the draft.
I do too. Real quick, though.
OD on the draft.
We're going to talk about the draft because there's a chance Ohio State could have 4 players taken in the first 7.
And 5 in the top first round.
And 5 in the first round. But you know what? They might have 4 players taken in the first 20.
True.
Because the things they are changing even as we speak when it comes to trades, people reconsidering what they need, what they want, who's a project, who's not, all up and down the board. But it promises to be a bountiful National Football League draft when it comes to harvesting, once again, for the second straight year, a bountiful draft from The Ohio State University. Agreed?
No doubt. No question. I mean,
and
they're going to rival, as we researched, that 1967 draft of the Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah, the Michigan State Spartans. And by the way, remember back then, how many teams were in the National Football League then? 16? Probably. Whatever it was, or twice as many now. But the bottom line is, I mean, that draft included the lights of the first 2 picks were Bubba Smith and Clinton Jones, running back. Bubba Smith, as you well know, not just Police Academy, but he was a defensive end before that.
Yeah.
Clinton Jones were running back, went to the Vikings, and then George Webster went to the Houston Oilers. I remember rooting for him as a youngster growing up in East Texas.
Yeah.
And then Gene Washington went to the Minnesota Vikings.
A very svelte receiver.
4 picks in the top 8. That's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
But, that's why that's why 4 in the top 10 would be, I would think, maybe surpass that because you do have the 32. Anyway, we'll see.
No, 4 picks in the top 8.
Well, with only 16.
Would not surpass that. I mean, we're talking about 4 of the – I mean, with 16 teams or whatever it was back then, might have been fewer than that. I'm trying to remember. They didn't – when was the consolidated draft? It might have been 2 years later when the AFL fully coagulated with the NFL and stuff. Because, I remember Joe Namath, my hero growing up, 64 Alabama national championship team, 65, but he was drafted by the New York Jets before the bowl game, the Orange Bowl against Texas, and ended up, I think, signing his contract in the end zone after that Orange Bowl, when that Orange Bowl was over. So that would have been January 1, the night game. I think the first Orange Bowl played at night. But he was also drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals. It was the St. Louis Cardinals then of the National Football League.
Drafted by 2 teams.
St. Louis,
because
there were
the
2
AFL,
leagues.
NFL.
Yeah. So that was a crazy time.
Yeah, I was 9, I think, at that point.
What was funny was John Hewart from Notre Dame, I think, won the Heisman Trophy that year. And I think he also was drafted I think he also was drafted by the Jets, but not as high as Joe Namath was, who should have won the Heisman. But I digress. Bottom line is, could be a banner night. Led off probably what you polled a bunch of the. By the way, we're going to have an extended conversation with Albert Breer of Monday Morning Quarterback fame, MMQB fame, talking about Ohio State's draft prospects specifically, and maybe a few other nuggets in there, but mainly about the possibility of Ohio State getting 5 players in that first round if Kayden McDonald, if somebody pulls the trigger on Kayden McDonald, and then a few other nuggets about where a couple of the other guys could go. Because like I said, this could still be a bountiful in terms of numbers for the Ohio State football team in this draft. Could get 10 or 11 guys taken
total.
Yeah, maybe,
it's 14 or 15. The
maybe
record.
more than that. Well, they had 13 taken last year. I think was the number.
I think 14 was it.
Maybe it's 14 was the number.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, but you polled, and I also have a conversation with LeCharles Bentley I did after he was named one of Ohio's finest last week during Ohio State football coaches clinic by Ryan Day, named him and Andy Katzenmoyer, 2 former players, 2 big-time All-American players who were named among Ohio's finest, meaning players who were born and raised or developed in Ohio before they came to Ohio State. And that was pretty cool, along with current still program assistant Tim Hinton.
Yeah,
Tim Hinton had his extended family there, which was cool.
All the Hintons?
I'm gonna get with him later. I'm gonna run a little bit of his video of his acceptance speech, because I thought it was pretty cool. Because Tim's one of our favorite people, without a doubt, and the guy who paid the price, the dues in the coaching ranks from high school up into college, and has been at Ohio State for a long time now.
Was an assistant at Notre Dame.
But even his mom was there, which was cool.
Awesome.
But
I think, can I throw this in?
Yeah.
I did a story in the summer, I would try to get an assistant and do something different at Channel 6. And he said, come on down to the farm. We'll get on the horses.
There you go.
And we went through the streams, and he goes, city boy, I don't know about you now. And, oh my gosh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was absolutely.
He quizzes me occasionally on football nomenclature or terms. And during Ryan Day's little coaching thing on Friday, he comes walking up and he goes, so what is a string? What is, and he went and started, and I kept looking at him. A string is something you use on a yo-yo. And I started demonstrating the yo-yo instead of what he was talking about. So we always have a good time, Tim Hinton and I. But definitely one of Ohio's finest when it comes to just the love of the sport and what he has brought to the sport from a support standpoint, I guess you could say, about Ohio State football. But we'll get to that, another podcast down the line.
Okay.
But I did want to play down after Albert Breer. I did want to play the LeCharles Bentley interview, because he had some interesting things to say about becoming a pro football player and what's expected of you, and how sometimes you don't miss what you grinded on for all those many years. That time has come and gone, and just an interesting interview. But let's get to your little poll. You did.
Okay.
You're such a hardworking.
I'm trying to come up with something I can
You're
add.
not my sidekick. What are you?
This guy.
What are you?
No, I'm the third co-pilot is what I am.
No,
I'm the key grip. That's
you're
all
the
I
key
am.
grip. You're the co-pilot minimum.
I'm just trying to find something different.
Yeah, but you came up with a nice little poll of former Ohio State Buckeye players who they think is going to get taken first. And I'm not going to give it away, but I think it goes along with what most people are saying about the draft. But
for sure,
you go ahead and introduce your little interesting nuggets there before we get into the Albert Breer conversation.
Yeah, if my phone dings, that's somebody getting back into the poll. I
have changed my mind, Jethro Bodine.
I sent about 50 texts. I went down my Rolodex, et cetera, et cetera. So Arvell Reese leads the way with 20 votes. I had 30 respondents, maybe a little over 30.
That's excellent.
So 20 said Arvell
would be the first Buckeye taken.
First, Sonny was second with 8.
Sonny Styles, linebacker.
And Caleb Downs, who I think as a GM, you would take him first or no?
Here's the thing.
Yeah,
I would take Caleb
you're
Downs
high on him
because I think Caleb Downs can become the core of your defense for the next 10 years. I don't care who you have. Almost anybody you've got at safety right now. This is a guy who would never have to leave the field, would be extremely prepared. Well, I'll get into that with Albert Breer, so I'll save that for the end. But when you're talking about just over-the-top athletic, almost prototypical athletic ability, there's no arguing with what Arvell Reese looks like and could become. Could become is the key phrase there. And what Sonny Styles is already and further could become. Caleb Downs is as close to a finished product of anybody in the draft. You know,
I'd agree with.
I mean, anybody in the draft, not just Ohio State Buckeyes, and then Carnell Tate. If you need a receiver that, barring injury, is going to be there for you for the next 10 years, is going to run great routes, and by the way, catch the ball when you throw it to him, which I think is key.
I think he's tough too.
By the way, Albert Breer and I talk about that whole 40-time snafu at the combine when it came to Carnell Tate and how he was timed in the 4.5s by the electric timing as opposed to the mid 4.4s by most of the coaches and scouts there. He explains what happened there is pretty interesting. It has to do with the electric timing aspect of the thing. But yeah. So,
all right, let me finish.
Yeah. I was going to go back to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Matt Finkus feels likewise. He said it should be Downs. He's basically playing like a 4-year NFL vet already. Bingo. But I'm going with Sonny over Arvell. I think number 8 isn't a proven edge, just what you said, but Sonny is a proven middle linebacker who can cover tight ends. All right, so Caleb.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
I'll just say this. Amen. Go ahead now.
Yeah. All right. Caleb had 4 votes, and Carnell had 2. One from Jayla Marshall, who played a lot of positions at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And Paris Johnson from the Arizona Cardinals, who you see a parallel there because Paris thinking they might grab him at 6.
Yeah.
No, excuse me. That's the
no. You're looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah. Cardinals at 3. So
I'm glad you're not the court reporter where we have to go back and review the testimony.
Yeah, Arizona's drafting 3rd. Cleveland, of course, drafting 6th. So one other curious reply from Ryan Pretorius, the former South African kicker at Ohio State, who said, Clay, I'm in a meeting in Beverly Hills. I'll get back to you, brother. And he did
all
3
the
times.
Gold in California.
He's got always
in a bank in the middle of Beverly Hills.
And then Ryan
with Ryan Pretorius sitting on it. That's one of the great songs ever.
He went and got in his Benz and zoomed down Highway 101.
Yeah, whatever. There you go. Night after night, day after day, it went on and on. I wonder if he's been up at the Griffiths Observatory. I was up there one night before a Rose Bowl many years ago in my rental car. Checking out, the view
Incredible
at night from up there. And it was stunning. There must have been 5,000 people there minimum. But then I put on Bob Seger on my way back down the mountain, down toward Hollywood. Matter of fact, came back down right on Hollywood Boulevard, and took me like 30 minutes to go 2 blocks that night. But yeah, there's nothing like Hollywood nights.
No, we drove up.
When the lights of LA are in front of you, man.
That's it, the city of
But
LA.
I digress. That's the little stupid stuff I do.
Well, yeah, we drove up there just so I could shoot a stand-up. Probably took an hour and a half.
Yeah.
The traffic was anyway.
You know what's funny is Channel 10, I remember we were going to do a pregame show up there. And they wouldn't let us do it for some reason or other. You can ask Moose about that next time you see him.
There was a bunch of blues roaming.
Yeah.
And and I remember the photog goes, hurry up, he went that way. And then we got 12 seconds on camera, which is what we need.
Why wouldn't they let you shoot stand-ups up there all day long? I mean,
I don't know.
Talk about advertising L.A. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
On one side of you go to one side of the Griffith Observatory and you see the San Fernando Valley, which goes on forever. The other side, you see L.A. from downtown L.A. all the way down to Long Beach, all the way out, Pacific Ocean.
Incredible.
Or Old Man Kali's Ocean, if you're an Andy Griffith fan. But Anyway, let's get to my interview, my talk with Albert Breer, where we touched on a lot of those things, where guys are going, et cetera. Albert always gives me some time before the draft, and I appreciate it once again.
You're his hero.
No. Although he did come up while, in the heyday of anyway, he did go to Ohio State in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. And
so he read you all the time.
He's come along. Yeah, but he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
That's what I like about Albert. But let's get to my conversation with Albert Breer.
Man, every year this time, it's always cool to be joined by Albert Breer, one of my favorite people, MMQB. Albert, what you got going on, man, here prior to the draft? Anything popping that is of interest to Ohio State fans?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's another one. It's like another one I would say that, hold on a second here.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm giving your listeners a real look now into what it looks like, which is my phone keeps dinging.
Yeah.
So whenever I forget to turn on silent when I'm going on with somebody, it creates a problem. Yeah, I mean, I think this is another year where you're going to see, a high number of players taken in the first round, and it's really amazing to me when I think about it, because I think it was 14 last year, which set the record, and to have 14, which I think was a school record, maybe not like the NFL record. I think LSU had 15 after the Joe Burrow team may have had 15, but to come off of that sort of year where you lose that number of players and then come back with, potentially 5 more first round picks, at least 4, and then, potentially 10 guys drafted. And then to look at the talent that's still on hand after they lose this group of players, it's just incredible. And I think it's a real tribute to, obviously Ryan Day, Mark Pantoni, the guys who built the roster there, because it just seems like it's like this unending stream of players that are going through there. And sorry if I was a little distracted there.
No, but dude, you're like an air traffic controller. You're trying to keep planes from running into each other. Hey, real quick though, when you look at this first round, I agree with something you posted, I think last week or week before last. Maybe this wasn't exactly what you posted. I just think pound for pound, Caleb Downs is the most can't miss guy in this draft, only because he seems already ready, to play NFL. He would learn a system in a heartbeat, and then be a leader out on the field, along with the fact he can make plays. And then on top of that, he loves to make plays. He's not some handy dandy running around out there. And but do you think Arvell Reese, here we are a day and a half before the draft as we're recording this, do you think Arvell Reese is the first Buckeye taken, as has been proposed?
Yeah, I would say there's a good chance of that. Like, I think he probably goes 3rd or 4th. My guess would be 4th right now, to Tennessee. And, I think the question with Arvell Reese isn't what he is right now. It's what he's going to be in 3 or 4 years. And I honestly think that's a big piece of, why he won't go 2nd overall. I think David Bailey from Texas Tech is going to go 2nd overall. And really the difference between the two, I think with David Bailey, all 32 teams know what he's going to be, right? Like all 32 teams have an idea. He's a hand on the ground, edge rusher. You know what you're getting. You've seen it at Stanford, at Texas Tech. Nick Benito is the comp I've heard from him. He's going to be a really good player, worthy of going 2nd overall. With Arvell Reese, you're going to have a different vision from team to team. And that, to me, is the difference. You know what I mean? Is that you're going to have one team's going to see it this way. This team's going to see it this way. This team's going to see it this way. And so I think for the teams involved, you have to have some feeling like, okay, we're going to have some time to develop them. And, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to have a freakish athlete who's going to develop into a really good football player and a unique weapon for what we want to do defensively. And so you have to be comfortable with that. And I think, for the Jets, having a guy who can provide hope right now is important. And I think that's David Bailey over Arvell Reese. And I think for Arizona, if you look at their history, they've sort of gone with the safe guy, the guy who's just the best football player. In fact, with their current general manager, Monty Ossenfort, that's meant 2 Buckeyes in the top 5 or in the top 10 top 5 in top 10. Paris Johnson in 2022 or 2023, and then Marvin Harrison in 2024. And I think that's going to be Jeremiah Love for them. So,
Gotcha.
I think I think Jeremiah Love is probably the third pick if Arizona can't move that pick. And then I think Tennessee is probably going to wind up being the home for Arvell Reese, and he'd be the first Buckeye off the board. And then I think Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Carnell Tate won't be waiting too long after that.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, before we move on, I wanted to ask you, of course, about Kayden McDonald, and then I want you to name one guy from the AYOs that you think is being maybe overlooked, underlooked, overrated, underrated. I'm talking about from Ohio State, but because there's a long list there of guys that could go. But the whole Carnell Tate falderall about his 40 time, you outlined this in one of your columns.
Yeah.
About the electric timing. See, I thought the electric timing or electronic timing, whatever you want to call it, was from the time your hand picked up to the time you cross the finish line.
Yeah.
And you pointed out that it starts when a guy hits a button, not necessarily when the guy picks his hand up. And there'd been some controversy about guys gaming the system, but I would think it's still got to be closer than a guy going this, but
this
go ahead.
Is really interesting to me because when I was in high school, actually way back in the late 90s, the electronic timing was new. So I can remember, taking your hand off of a pad, and that's what it was back when I was trying to break 5 flat. And,
Wow, you were that close to it, huh? Go ahead.
I can't run that now. No, not anymore. But it's sort of interesting to me because I always thought that was the most objective way to do it.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that they don't do it that way anymore. And the reason why is because when the guys go to these training facilities and they're being taught to do the 40, they were actually being taught technique.
Yeah.
So they're going and their hand is leaving the pad late. And so, I think that there was a feeling that was unfair, was screwing up the accuracy of the times. And that is one reason why teams keep it handheld, because there's always been one method to do that. So it's when you're talking about data collection over, 40 years of combine, like the apples to apples comparison is someone with a stopwatch, because that's how it was being done in 85 and 92 and 98, so there's that. So you have the handheld time, and then because people were gaming the electronic time, which again I had thought in my head was the most objective one, they do have a guy with a button there, and so that is subject to some level of human error, especially when we're talking about tenths of a second. And so it was interesting that way, and that Carnell's times, when I talked to teams, it's like, okay, somebody had mentioned this to me the other day, because what their team had, what this team had was, if you're over 4.52 and under 200 pounds at that position, which Carnell, like by the electronic time is, and he weighed less than 200 pounds at the combine, like there's very little evidence of guys going that high or succeeding going in the first round. And so, his point, it was a concern for us, but we had him as a 4.44 on our stopwatches. And then there were other people that I touched. So I started asking around more and more. The methods that the combine was using came up. And so I learned that there is actually some human error involved with the 40 times, which I personally didn't know before this. And obviously, like, this created a lot of noise when Adam reported it coming out of the combine. I think people assumed he was doing favors for somebody or whatever. But, when I asked around, what I found was that, it was legit, and that Carnell, in the eyes of a lot of people, was being, in the eyes of a lot of teams, had run a 4.4 and was being graded as a guy who ran in the 4.4.
Yeah. Jeremiah Smith told me at Ohio State's pro day that the thing about Carnell is, who cares about a straight line speed one way or the other? He thought that was the time was bogus. But then on top of that, he said, this guy gets separation, and wins often at the point, at the high point and all that kind of stuff. And we all saw him make huge plays last year and stuff. So I think that was kind of your take too, right? I mean, the production, the video on the field is what doesn't lie. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what you see is what you get with Carnell. Like he's seen as being very smooth, obviously tall, linear, a guy who's made plays downfield. a really good route runner for somebody who's as tall as he is. I think some teams view Jordan Tyson as having more upside, but Jordan Tyson tore an ACL at Colorado, had a broken collarbone at Arizona State, and then last year had hamstring issues dogging him all year.
Yeah.
So there's like a little bit more projection there with Jordan Tyson. I think both of them are gone within the first dozen picks, top 10 pick, somewhere in there. And they're both really good prospects. I think with Carnell, I think part of it is like how you know what he is. And so it's like, okay, like how much room for growth is there? Because he already is a pretty developed guy and did a good job honing his craft at Ohio State. So I think for a lot of the teams involved, it's like he's a safe pick, but like, do you see him growing into being a number one receiver? He never had to be that at Ohio State,
Right.
So I think that's one question that teams have that are considering him way up there in the first round. But I don't think. I mean, I personally don't see him getting past New Orleans at 8, and I think he could go as high as the Giants at 5.
There you go. New Orleans stockpiling Buckeyes. No, I'm just joking. Hey, real quick, I just want you to answer this in a nutshell. I don't think Caleb Downs ran a 40
Nope.
in pre-draft. But you put on the video, he always gets to what I call the last frame of the video on a play. You know what I mean? Whether it's right at him or across the field. What's just your take on him?
I mean,
is he special?
I'm not a scout, but I watched every snap he played at Ohio State as a fan, and I can't remember thinking he was out of position once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's what he is like he's kind of a guy who his football IQ is off the charts. The comps I've heard, I thought one interesting comp for him was Eric Weddle. Like he's like a more explosive Eric Weddle.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting comp. Eric Weddle, of course, was a great player for all those years for the Chargers and the and the Ravens, and had that great finish with the Rams when he came back.
Yeah.
I think like at a baseline, like he's one of the safest players in the draft. And I think at a baseline, you look at him and say, this guy's going to play 10, 12 years in the league, make a bunch of Pro Bowls. Now, I think the question is going to be for him. And as the teams have discussed this over the last couple of weeks, is like, is he a game-changing type of safety? And, some of the guys that we've seen come out more recently are more freakish than he is.
Gotcha.
Minkah Fitzpatrick was a converted corner, so he had corner athleticism. Coming into the NFL when the Dolphins drafted him.
Yeah.
Back in, I think it was 2018. You look at the size and speed of Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton, and that like this past year, Nick Emanwari coming out of South Carolina. And that's not what Caleb is, And so I think, the question sort of is, at what point do you feel comfortable taking a safety who is not an absolute freak show, right? Who's just going to be a really good player? And can a safety who doesn't have those freakish abilities be a game-changing type of player for you? Like, I'll give you an example of how Emanwari does this, right? So Emanwari was that guy for Seattle in that, and I think this showed up in the Super Bowl, in that you could basically play him from a run game standpoint like he's a linebacker. And that allowed the Seahawks to basically look like they were in their base, even though they were in their nickel nonstop, and keep two safeties over the top. And so they were playing like a too-high defense that effectively was taking the deep parts of the field away, and they weren't giving up in the run game what teams normally give up in the run game to do that, because Emanwari could toggle around and do all these different things. And so he became a weapon for them. And that's what Derwin James is. That's what Kyle Hamilton is. I mean, that's where it is in the modern NFL now, is that you see more and more that big safety is the Swiss Army knife. Is the guy who can do all those different things. And if you look it up, right, and this to me was one of the most important stats of the Super Bowl, right? So if the Patriots were going to have success against the Seahawks in that game, they were going to have to run them out of that nickel, basically meaning that the Seahawks would have to put another linebacker on the field and play with a personnel group that they did not want to play with, right?
Yeah.
And the Patriots couldn't do it. And in the end, again, I thought this was one of the most impressive stats. So the three safeties in Seattle, right? Nick Eamon, Julian Love, and Kobe Bryant. With Bryant and Love, Bryant went to the Bears now, but Bryant and Love were the two deep safeties. Eamon underneath. Those three guys were on the field together for 70 of the 71 snaps of the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And the Patriots couldn't run the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just, I think that like I'm saying that because I think it's an example of how some of the bigger guys, you know, the guys who are like the real weapons. So can Caleb Downs be that? Can Caleb Downs be good enough where he can play the run that way and toggle? You know, it's just, and I think Caleb's got that, but he doesn't have like the outsized dimensions that those other guys do to play that
Gotcha.
role.
Yeah, and you know, of course, you're a big Ohio State fan. You saw Ohio State run that very similar defense a lot last year with three safeties. And
it's what like and honestly, I'm sure you've heard Matt Patricia compare Caleb Downs to Patrick Chung.
Yeah.
And what Patrick Chung did in New England for I don't know if he said that to you guys, but
but does that sound legit? I mean, to you?
That's the role that he played. Yeah. That's the role that Caleb played. So I can't think of a player honestly that I enjoyed watching play more.
Yeah.
I mean, I you know, my era, and like this is going to make you feel really old.
Yeah, I know, man.
My era, like one of my favorite players, one of my favorite Buckeyes from my era was Mike Doss.
Yeah.
I loved Mike Doss. I thought, I mean, just an absolute baller. Didn't become a great pro, but like for the same reasons I loved Mike Doss, I love Caleb Downs because he's just an assassin back there and he can do so many different things. And it's going to be interesting because, you know, you've heard Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban, I think, said this is going to be a gold jacket guy. Yeah. And I always pay attention to like who Saban's favorite players are. Some of these teams actually is interesting. I know I'm going on here, but
no, that's all right.
You know, like I know at least a couple teams would always circle the guy. Like Nick would have a favorite player. You know what I mean? Like Nick would, and so. Over the years, I remember there was a year it was Brian Branch, who's become a really good player for the Lions. There was a year it was Xavier McKinney, who's become a really good player both in New York and now in Green Bay. And you know, generally it was and a lot of times it was a defensive back because that's who Nick was working with. And I've heard Nick felt that way about Caleb, which I think tells you a lot for the sort of kid he is and the sort of player he is.
See, that's why I would take him somewhere early because he's going to be there for a long time and be a high quality player. That's the way I would look at the draft as opposed to need. And like you said,
Arvell you know Reese, what you get. You know what you're getting from as a person.
Correct.
That's the other part of it. I think that part of it's cool. Like I just think like I look at it, Tim, and like you know, there's a story I heard. Somebody relayed this story to me that I thought was really interesting. So he enrolled early at Alabama, and so he was there for their bowl game. So it would have been, God, that would have been, so he enrolled, like, whatever their bowl game was ahead of his freshman year. So, like, he played, I think, it would have been 22 season, right? 22 into going into 23. Whatever bowl game they were in, he started practicing with them. But, you know, those guys are ineligible to play.
Yes.
And one of a scout told me that a coach relayed this story to him that they were on the bus going from the hotel to the game. Or going from the bus to going from the hotel to practice, and the coach saw like Caleb's head down in his laptop, and he asked Caleb what he's doing. He said he's studying the game plan, and that was for a game he wasn't even playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's him, man.
So I thought, I mean, it's just like you hear stories like that, and I think that's. You know, if all things are equal, that's a guy who's going to last in the NFL.
Yeah, the thing I'll leave on that is he will get you lined up. See, not everybody is that cerebral. Not everybody packs all of that plus the physical ability to make plays and then the want to make plays. I mean, he's got a nasty streak to him too that I think. Hey, real quick, I know you got to go, but we talked about the four. The fifth to me. See, I think Kayden McDonald. You may disagree with me. I think Kayden McDonald is a guy I have seen take 3 steps, huge steps, the last 3 seasons. And last year was basically hardly left the field, you know, for the most part, in that middle defensive play. And you watched him play. I mean, he was a difference maker in the middle of the field. He was a difference maker the year before on those big-time goal line stands. I can't see this guy dropping past the first round.
I told you, I think Arvell Reese, probably 4 to the Titans, maybe Tate 5 to the Giants, maybe Styles 7 to the Commanders, maybe downs in that like Giants, Dolphins, Cowboys range right there, 10 to 12.
Yes.
I think Kayden McDonald's ceiling would probably be like Buffalo, and that's at 26, I think. And
Which could change it.
I think what's interesting, with him is like, and him and like the Georgia D tackle Kristen Miller are sort of this way,
Yeah.
where it's like they can be two down players, right? And so the question I think with them becomes, what's their pass game value? So you're getting a good player, but if he's just going to be like a two down nose tackle, well then he's probably, you might have a tough time squaring that with the idea that he's your first round pick.
Gotcha.
But if you look at him, you say there's some athleticism there, there's some untapped potential. Maybe he can become a little bit more in the passing game. You can leave him on the field on third down. Well, then that, would take his value to another level. So I think what he is, like, as a nose. And then it sort of becomes from there, okay, like, is there some untapped potential that we can work with, that we can get out of him? And I think there were some signs of that, right? Like Ohio State, like you didn't see it consistently, but there were some signs that could be there.
He would push the pocket. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think his potential is still ahead of him, but he would push the pocket big time. Especially last year, man, he would summon it on certain, plays and just be a monster. I know you got to go. I just wanted to add, past Kayden McDonald, I think Lorenzo Styles Jr. gets taken just because of his potential. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I think he's like kind of, I would say he's probably
special teams, whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to look through, hold on a second. I'm going to pull up some of my notes here. So I think he's probably, my guess would be like probably somewhere on day 3. I think like with a guy like him, you got the special teams value. He could play nickel for you. Obviously he's got the experience on offense. I don't think he'll play offense in the NFL, but there are a bunch of different things you can do with someone like him. And like somebody like that, it's interesting. A guy like that can become valuable for you in camp too, which I think someone's going to look at and say, like, at the very least, like we bring him in and maybe he's our 5th round pick, our 6th round pick. Here's a guy who we can move around, and he can be a depth piece for us at a number of different spots and keep us functional at camp when the injury bug hits. And we'll see if he develops into something. And so I like him. The other one that I think is sort of interesting to me, at least, would be Caden Curry.
Yes, I was just.
And I sort of, I'm sort of wondering what's going to become of him, because there's such a premium on pass rushers, and like I just think there's going to be a home for him in the NFL. I don't know. It's going to be. I don't know that it'll be more than as a rotational guy, but he's somebody that I think there's such a premium on finding guys like that who have an ability to get after the passer, that are relentless, and he's relentless, and I just see him as someone who maybe similar to Sam Hubbard a couple of years ago, like, well, that's a long time ago now, but like, somebody who isn't going to go real high, but I think has a chance to stick around in the NFL for quite some time. Draymond Jones is another great example of it, like where Draymond Jones was a tweener. He was a 3 tech at Ohio State. And he was somebody that just kind of kept plugging away at it. You know what I mean? Like, and he eventually found his home, and now he's going to wind up having made tens of millions of dollars as a pro. Like, it's not impossible for me to see that sort of outcome for Caden Curry.
All right. Hey, let's say the guy that's intriguing me, because I've watched this guy develop. I watched him become a little more disciplined last year in terms of his use of hands.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Is Davison Igbinosun.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you something, Albert.
Who looks like he's interfering on every play. I hate to say that.
Yeah. And he'll tell you the receiver's doing the same thing.
Legs. There's so much.
Yeah. He just can't control himself, but I just go let him. But the point is, he's one of those guys. He has that mirror ability. I mean, Denzel Ward had it on top, but the ability to run with whatever the receiver's doing, he has that. You can watch him. He has that ability to do that. And I'm just going, somebody's got to take a shot.
He has like a little bit of like
he's big,
like, and he's got a competitive streak to him too that you like. He's interesting.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll let you go, man. I think both tight ends are going to get taken, Kesmerick and Claire, somewhere along the way.
I would say like Igbinosun, Curry, you got a chance to go on day 2 for them.
Yeah.
Igbinosin again is like as a matchup guy, just because he's so unique because of his size.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the tight ends I think are probably. I think Max Clare is probably somewhere on day 2. It's a good tight end class.
Yeah.
So Max Clare is, I think, somebody that intrigues you a little bit. Like he had a bigger role at Purdue, maybe because there was a little less around him there.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
There were fewer mouths to feed there, but I think there are people that like the idea of Max Clare as sort of one of these move tight ends, and Kazmarek probably goes somewhere on day 3.
Yeah. Hey, and the last thing, Taiwan Malone, Ethan Onianwa never really reached their. You're a big Ohio State fan. You went to Ohio State.
I know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Ethan Onianwa, they put all that money into him last year, and he just, felt. Yet he has this background at Rice. Taiwan Malone was a former football player who finally contributed last year in a big way and stuff. But
yeah,
are those just final day guys?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're undrafted free agents like that. You're looking to. I think somebody's going to see maybe off the Rice tape with Onianwa and then some of the potential that Malone has athletically as worth taking a shot on. And then those guys then have to flash in camp, and it's harder. I think one thing people don't realize is that all these things really aren't created equal, Like if you're a first or a second or a third round pick, you're probably not getting cut your first couple of years. So you're going to have a couple of years to develop. Whereas and I think that this more often should play into these guys' decisions when they're thinking about going to the NFL. It's like if you're going to be a 6th or 7th round pick, there's no guarantee you're making the team out of your first camp. You know what I mean? So everybody wants to be a first round pick, but there's a big difference between going in the 3rd round and the 6th or 7th round also, where, for a 6th or 7th round pick or an undrafted free agent, you really, you got to show something to stick around, whereas the other guys have a little bit more time to develop.
Gotcha. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Albert Breer. Appreciate you, my friend.
I don't know about incomparable, but I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. Thank you very much, brother.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. How was the spring?
It was pretty good.
Are you going to be good?
Yeah. I mean,
I always appreciate Albert Breer. The guy knows his stuff. He can't, he was going to give me like 8 to 10 minutes. I think we talked for 25 or 30 because his depth of knowledge. That doesn't mean you're always right about where guys are going, the teams that are taking them, et cetera. But his depth of knowledge, you can't just pull that bucket back up out of the well without it hitting something. And
he makes a good argument.
Yeah, but he has all these reasons to support his argument or his stance on something. But he wants to let you know, he's taking everybody's perspective before coming up with his rhyme or reason. Speaking of you, did you find anything else interesting among those poll of the former players about where these Ohio State Buckeyes are going to go?
I love that Glenn Mason got back to me.
Wow.
I recall going to the coaches convention.
He's not only a former Ohio State coach, assistant coach, he's a former Ohio State player, ladies and gentlemen.
You got it.
Glenn Mason, former Minnesota coach, Kansas, Kent State, etc.
Was living in Minneapolis. That's where I hooked up with him the last trip up there after he had retired.
Yep.
But love that dude. And at one point I thought he was going to beat out until Tressel made the late run to get the gig.
Andy Geiger
but Glenn
was
Mason,
not going to hire.
Well, let me tell you
something. Going to hire Glenn Mason because everybody was telling him Glenn Mason is can't miss. That's who Andy Geiger wanted to hire his own guy. And Jim Tressel ended up being that guy when Mike Bellotti put his foot in the pool and then pulled his foot out of the pool.
What was amazing is that whole search was kind of a free-for-all. We're running around town. Who's here? I mean, Glenn Mason put himself out there, came to town, was driving around. I mean, he as I later wrote him a letter, I said, I hope he said, Clay, it was a little uncomfortable, but I wanted to do everything I could. Thankfully, I have a great job. And what in the world? He goes, I don't get many letters from the media. And I have it framed. It was just one of those periods in your
What'd
career.
You tell him? What'd you say to him?
I just said,
don't leave people hanging.
The fact he interviewed, he gave me sound. And It was
in the midst of it all.
It was just
he gave
a wild,
you sound in the midst of it all.
Well, he gave me sound in Atlanta because he was at the coaches convention.
Yeah.
And then later he surfaced in Columbus and we talked and we shot some stuff. But yeah, he talked before he got to Columbus. I think he wanted it so bad he was going to pull out all the stops. And it was somebody fairly famous driving him around the Columbus campus.
Who was that? Arch Griffin?
No, I don't recall.
Well, Arch Griffin was, involved in the search along with others. But that's funny because at coaches convention, I think Bob Baptist was down there for us. I think it was Bob.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It was either Bob or Todd Jones. I can't remember who was around when and stuff.
Yeah.
But they ended up in Atlanta because they wanted me at ground zero.
Okay.
Or whatever you call this. And anyway, long story longer, Tyrone Willingham was coming down an escalator, and whoever we had there was either Bob Baptist or Todd Jones or somebody. Said, Coach, I'm from Columbus. I'm from the Columbus Dispatch. I was wondering if I could gauge your interest in the Ohio State job or something like that.
Yeah.
And Tyrone Willingham supposedly said to him, "Are you Tim May?" Because we'd been calling these guys forever, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny.
Yeah. He should have faked like he was and then see what he'd say. But I'll never forget when John Gruden, remember?
Yeah.
The thing was John Gruden was offered X amount of money, an exorbitant amount of money, according to an NFL source back then.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next NFL source, this was the beginning of the internet, when the internet was taking off. Next NFL source or next NFL insider reporter said, John Gruden was offered, and he put $2 million or something on it. And not only that, and it's for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. And then the third guy says, well, not John Gruden has been offered and is even more money, and for whatever amount of time. And by the way, he's headed to Columbus. He's on a plane heading for Columbus. None of which
was true.
None of which was true. And I had the sports editor of our paper at that time calling me on my cell phone, which I hadn't had a cell phone until then, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, because I hadn't really needed one. And asked me, how come we're not reporting? I said, well, I'm not reporting because it's not true, but you can put your name on it and write something up. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
What a joke.
Yeah.
And it was a joke. Was Gruden approached? Yeah, I think he was approached about his interest in the job. But it was really funny listening to him talk the other night at the Ohio State football coaches clinic because he gave a ridiculously cool, always does, presentation. And you could see it from I think it was our last Friday's podcast.
Yes.
Where we also previewed the spring game. But John Gruden's one of my favorites. He's not, he even, like I pointed out, he even pointed out in the talk, he goes, if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me by the DMing, at Barstool Gruden. I think it's Barstool Gruden on Instagram.
I've seen it.
Or I think it's even on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram. I should be. I'm on there, but I don't partake. Maybe I should be. But the bottom line is, he goes, I don't do email anymore. Because that's probably why he's not a head coach somewhere. Not probably exactly why, because otherwise, why isn't this guy coaching football for somebody who wants a winning football team? But I digress.
Yeah.
The other guy at that coaches clinic, like I said a while ago, was LeCharles Bentley, former Buckeye center, All-American center, who went on to the National Football League and had a hell of a career. I think first with New Orleans and then was playing with Cleveland and ended up having some kind of surgery and ended up getting a staph infection, which put his life in jeopardy at one point, and pretty much moved on from football after that. But he was, like I said, he was recognized as one of Ohio's finest by Ryan Day. And I like the fact that Ryan Day gotten into at least this year, got into like some of the younger guys. Even though Andy Cashmore played back in the mid-'90s at Ohio State, he's still a youngish guy, linebacker. And LeCharles Bentley, center extraordinaire, one of the pantheon of great centers that have come through Ohio State, right?
Tim, isn't he still training Yeah.
He's still training offensive
for
lineman.
the draft. Yeah.
That's what we talk about a little bit in this.
Yeah.
In this too, but not only that, but even current linemen, maybe NFL linemen and current high school and college linemen, they come here for the finer points. As
Bingo.
Ryan Day cited him as being maybe the most talented among his group of line coaches, who's not a real, not working for a team. He works for the New Orleans Saints now too, in a capacity, and also still does work for the National Football League. He's been a promoter of flag football. He and I talk about that a little bit. Also, I had him on my podcast like a year and a half, 3 years ago, where he talked about how the promotion of flag football for youth up until you get to be a certain age, and when you put on your helmet, your head doesn't wobble.
Yeah,
and
your bones are still.
Although I always thought that the safest I ever saw my boys play football was when they were in the uber peewee leagues, like 9 and 10, when you couldn't hit anybody that hard.
Those were some of the best.
Boy, you get in that 11 and 12 group, and now you start seeing those guys with those BB eyes who want to take you out.
Yeah, Parker, man, he got lit up. He was playing DB.
Yeah.
And they brought some kind of fearsome offensive line, and he went flying.
Yeah.
Put his helmet back on, got right back.
Oh, yeah. It's football.
We were like, go, Parker.
We played tackle in the backyard or front yard or whichever yard wasn't torn up from time to time. We rotated our fields like Ohio State does on its practice fields. But we played tackle.
Like a tee box.
Dude, my famous thing about the difference between me and my older brother, Ben, I had one older brother, 2 younger brothers. One of the great differences was I was much better looking. You can imagine how ugly he was. One of the great difference was Ben would do anything. And I always equate football players to where I judge Ben, because Ben played at Lufkin High School. He was a backup center, never was a starter, but played hard. But we would occasionally, when it was really wet on the yards, we would play in we lived on a cul-de-sac in Lufkin, Rosewood Circle, and occasionally we'd play out in the street. Ben would dive for passes on the street. He thought blood was a sign of guts.
There you go, buddy.
And I don't know what he thought blood and guts were a sign of. But anyway, Ben May, I miss you every day, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. He and my next older brother, Mike, passed away. My baby brother, Tony who's 68.
Yes.
Is still around, but we think about those days all the time. But anyway, let's get to my conversation.
Charles.
Speaking of a tough dude, let's get to my conversation with LeCharles Bentley.
What was it like to get kind of honored, so to speak, at the Ohio State University Coaches Clinic?
It was surreal. It was really surreal. Walking back into the building is always one of those events where it brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
And also have this moment kind of coincide with Andy Katzmore's moment. Again, these are the guys you grew up idolizing, and then at one point in time I was his teammate, and to just see life come full circle, it's always special.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, I remember the first day you showed up here, right on down the line. You were always an impressive human being to me.
I appreciate that.
On top of being an impressive football player and stuff. But when you get to be your age, and that's not very old yet, correct?
Right.
How much do you even still miss the playing of the game?
Oh, man.
The one thing that you can't get in anything else, even with your incredible business you got going, teaching linemen how to play the game, all these other things you've done for the NFL and things, but how tough is it not to be playing the game?
Is your camera still on?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, it just saves the energy.
It's funny. It's a great question. I was just talking to Jamar Martin. I called him here.
Coach Martin.
Yeah, Coach Martin now. And I just said to Jamar, I said, you couldn't pay me enough to go back and relive our football journey.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things, once you've done it, I can't speak for everyone, but I speak for myself. Once you've done it and you know that you've given all that you can do it, I'm comfortable letting it go.
Yeah.
Life goes on.
Yeah.
I think for some guys, it's a harder reality to face. I kind of went through my process, obviously, but looking back on it, I exhausted my opportunity and my time. I enjoy now being able to serve the game in a different way. But do I miss it? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I loved it when I had it, but it's okay. It's a chapter.
The position you played, though, I mean, rarely did you have the ball in your hands running with it. You always had the ball in your hands at the beginning.
Yes, right.
But I mean, explain to people what it's like to be a lineman at that level of football, and where does the joy truly come from playing? Is it just knowing you're part of a machine that just did something cool? I mean, how would you explain the gratification for a lineman? Because you work with these guys all the time.
Right. I think it kind of goes back to your last question, why maybe I don't miss it. My connection to the game may have been a little different than some guys. My enjoyment came through knowing that what I prepared for came to fruition. And living in that moment, for lack of a better term, I don't like using this word, but the anxiety, the stress, that constant need to always be on, especially being a center. You're one shotgun snap away from a bad game, right? Or one fumble snap away from the whole stadium turning against you.
Yeah.
And just also understanding the importance of creating cohesion with the quarterback, with the rest of your line mates. That's a responsibility. I think for myself, that joy I found is being one that can connect the guys around me, seeing my work come to fruition, and also imposing your will on another athlete. That's what I found fun. But to that point, it's exhausting. And I think for some guys,
almost like a golf, playing golf.
Yes,
right? Every shot's a different
Everything
shot.
is something different, right? So it was an exhausting journey. And for these guys nowadays, I don't empathize. I do empathize with them. I don't. I guess I can say it makes me realize how much I don't miss it, because the world that they're living in now, it's even that much more heightened. You got money involved now, you got the social media world involved now, the expectations. That part of it is unique, and I don't miss any of it.
You would have liked to have revenue sharing, though, and some NIL, though, when you were in college.
That would have been nice. That would have been nice. But even to that point, though, I'm not sure. Here's why. I was just, again, talking to Jamar about it. You know what? If you would have given me $1 million in, my freshman year, I'm not sure how good I would have been, to be frank with you, because you're 17 years old, you're 18 years old, and, at that stage, $50,000 you think you're rich.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you're in a stage and developing the world that I grew up in, I think that hunger was just enough to keep an edge and keep your knives sharp and keep you moving forward.
Okay, you tutor linemen. You become, like Ryan Day thinks you're the best in the country at it. My point is this, I'm not trying to butter you up, but do you still see that desire by these young men when they show up at your place to be more than just rich, meaning to work at that craft, to be good at their craft? I mean, obviously if they've shown up at your place, something's going on there from you understand what I'm saying? Is the hunger still there among young guys and maybe even older guys?
That's a unique world that even from a business standpoint, I am having to navigate because the psyche of the players, it's different than it used to be. The motivation and what drives the guys, it's different than what it used to be. Now, with all that being said, if you're intentional in what you do, you find a thumb screw, and you find it, and you have to know how to turn that thumb screw to get the athlete that's inside of them to really want to excel. That's the art of it. One of the things from a business standpoint is, I moved my facility to Cleveland. And I'll tell you this, if you come to Cleveland in January and February, you're serious.
You want to be there.
You want to be there, right? Because the weather's going to do everything it can to keep you away.
Yeah.
So it's just about creating an environment the same way here. It's a culture, it's an environment that is going to challenge you to be the best version of yourself. Yeah, all the other things that come along with it, the facility is totally different what it used to be, the amenities are different, the money is different. All that is great. However, it's still about football. It's still about the game.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you're going to have to deal with a 3rd and 1. And that 3rd and 1 situation, that dude at Texas, don't care how much money you make or don't make, he has a job to do it. He's going to do it. And our job and your job as a young athlete is to still prepare yourself to manage through that.
Hey, last time you were on my show, you were also helping promote like flag football for youth. Are you still involved in all that?
Yeah, it's great to see where it's at.
Yeah, but it's going to be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, is that crazy to you? I mean,
it's exciting to me to see where the game has evolved to now become a more inclusive game. You know, it used to be back in the day that a lot of high school coaches, tackle coaches felt that flag was diluting the game or making the game soft.
Yeah.
But I believe that the league has done a tremendous job in positioning football as football. It doesn't matter if you're young, old, boy, girl, flag, helmet, it's football.
Yeah.
It gives the game a very unique opportunity to grow, not just here in this country, but abroad. And I think that's always a good thing for the game in totality.
Hey, let's think, what else are you involved in? I mean, give people some idea.
You know, I'm still doing my role with the National Football League. I took a role with the New Orleans Saints,
right?
An advisory role. I still operate my performance center. I also own a sports agency. I stay busy. I live in the world of football, and I think for me, being able to stay connected to the game and serve the game in so many different avenues, it allows me to, number one, I wake up every day with a purpose. I think that former guys
and a payroll,
that helps too, right? Like a lot of guys that played this game. This is something I would say to all the guys that are in the game. I don't care how much money you make, how successful you are. The thing that drives you, that inner being, that inner drive, that inner dog, whatever you want to call it, doesn't go away when you've accomplished your goals as a player. The challenge is to find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing to keep that thing inside of you burning. And for me, I found it inside the game, in the business of football, and I love it. It keeps me going every day. I get to serve players, I get to serve the game, and what more can you ask for?
Bonus question, and I'm out of here because you know me, I always ask 4 more.
Okay.
You remember me. Sorry about that. Sorry you have that memory.
All good.
What would be your counsel to guys who are going to be drafted next week? Just in a nutshell, is it like live for the day? I mean, what would you tell them about what's expected? Because I don't think they totally understand sometimes. It ain't college anymore.
Here's what I would say to them. There's one part of me that wants to obviously enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Be in the moment. Don't get caught up in what round. Just understand that whatever's going to happen, that's intended for you in that moment. Now, big picture wise, understand that the National Football League, it's a system. It's a business. The business is not predicated on your development. That's your responsibility.
Yeah. So
when you get into this game, don't expect anyone to be doing more to get you to where you want to be. Yeah. That's your responsibility. And I think if young guys come into this game understanding that this is not college football where the jobs and what's going on around here is predicated on Johnny, Jim, and Joe getting better.
Yeah.
The National Football League doesn't work that way. It doesn't care if you're good or not. As a matter of fact, I will go as far as saying, when you're a media company, the way that the league operates, whether you're good or bad, they're going to win. And so your job is to make sure that you're doing all that you can do as a player to prepare yourself to make sure that you can win.
Absolutely one of my favorite Buckeyes of all time, LeCharles Bentley. I think you know why. Not just a great player, but always enjoyed any conversation I had with him. And yeah, finally, you get drafted by the National Football League by a team. That is just the beginning. Is this an achievement for some? Some get a lot of guaranteed money in that first contract, meaning from a signing bonus, et cetera. But I'll never forget I won't name names, but there was a player from the Buckeyes. Well, I'll name his name. He was a running back, Joe Montgomery. And he was talking about how he got drafted, I think it was by the Giants. And he went and I think in the first training camp he was at with the Giants, I think Tiki Barber was there. And at one practice, as he told the story, I think it was Tiki Barber, he asked him, there was his play call, and he didn't quite remember what the play was, and he asked Tiki Barber which way he was supposed to go, and Tiki told him one way, when in fact he was supposed to go the other way. Now, Tiki might have just been messing with him, hazing, whatever. But you got to remember this. A pro football, when you get a position for a pro football team, whether it be a starting job or on the roster, that's a job. And there are other grown-ups trying to get the same job. And the friendly aspect of the game that you've enjoyed all the way through college, the camaraderie of everybody fighting all for one for all, kind of goes out the window, especially in any kind of training camp situation or anything else. Believe me, when a player goes down, the NFL has a long list of guys they can bring in off the waiver wire or whatever and take your spot. And you pretty much have to, when you come back, you pretty much have to still fight for your spot. Yeah, there are some guaranteed situations out there, absolutely. But it is a job from then on. And like LeCharles said, they want you to get better. They want you to go to the weight room. They want you to do this, that, and the other. But primarily, it's up to you to do the work. And if you don't do the work and you fall behind, there's a good chance, you're on the outside looking in. And so it becomes very much a job for everybody, including first-round draft picks. From starting Thursday night on, everybody who's taken in the draft and everybody who signed after that to a free agent contract, it's your job then to get yourself mentally, physically, really, and morally ready to play in the National Football League, because there's always a list, a long line, a queue of guys behind you trying to take that job. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but Clay Hall had hit the ejection seat, kind of like Maverick, and had to scoot on because he had to get somewhere later today. Appreciate the interview I did with LeCharles Bentley. Appreciate the time I got from Albert Breer. And, we'll see you again on Friday after the first round of the draft is history. Whether the Buckeyes make history in that draft remains to be seen. But there will be, 6 more rounds after that, including 2 on Friday night and the other, 4 on Saturday, where Buckeyes could go places. Could be double-digit Buckeyes drafted again. We'll see how that goes. I'll have Dylan Davis in on Friday of the Delaware Gazette, delgazette.com. One of my favorite people. We play golf a lot together, and we'll break down on what happened in that first round and what maybe could be coming for the Buckeyes, and maybe touch on some other subjects. So until then, speaking for Clay Hall, who's not here and can't speak for himself, I'm Tim May. We'll see you then.